All right, all right. Welcome to another Monday morning high five. We are continuing our journey through the book of Judges. Judges chapter 7. We're going to cover verses 9 through 18. And so the story continues. Last week, we talked about God taking Gideon's army from 32,000 men all the way down to 300 men. Um, and so after this separating, this allowing people to leave who were afraid or just weren't going to be helpful for Gideon in this battle, God tells him, now's the time for you to and go down to their camp and attack them. I have given you victory. They're in your hand. Go get it done. But then God says, if you're still afraid, you can go down and take your servant with you, and you can hear what they're saying. And so Gideon takes his servant. He chooses option B. He says, yeah, you know what? I am still a little bit afraid. So he takes his servant and they go to kind of the outskirts of the enemy's camp. And while they're there, all these people are there, and um, God orchestrates that one of them is talking about a dream that he had. And this dream that he has is he says, I dreamed that a cake of barley bread tumbled into the camp, um, and it struck the tent, one of the tents that was here, and the tent fell. It turned upside down. It flattened the tent. And the other person who's listening to the dream says, you know what? There's only one explanation for this dream. It must mean that God is with Gideon, and Gideon and Israel is going to be victorious over us. That's the only explanation for a dream like that. I mean, if you're listening, I'm sure there's probably many dreams. And just thinking about it, hearing it's there's probably many dreams or many explanations why you would dream that. But hey, they were convinced there's only one explanation. And so when Gideon hears the the dream, when he hears the interpretation of the dream, the Bible says he worshiped, and he quickly returns to the camp of Israel and he tells them, okay, let's go. God has given the enemy into our hand. Let's go right now. And so he takes the 300 men and he divides them up into three groups, three companies. And what's interesting, they don't it doesn't say they took swords. It says they they took trumpets and they took empty jars and torches inside the jars. And Gideon tells everyone, just keep your eyes on me. Whatever you see me do, that's what you copy, you imitate, you do that. Um, they were gonna basically surround the enemy, and they were gonna blow on the trumpet. And when they blew on the trumpet, they were all gonna shout for the Lord and for Gideon. So that's the game plan. We'll get into the specifics of the game plan if God says the same next week, but that's kind of where we that's the quick version of these verses 9 through 18. And so, Rich, you want to start us off with what you see in these verses?
Yeah. What stood out to me was verses 9 and 10, where the Lord came to Gideon, said, get up, go down to the Midianite camp, for I have given you victory over them. And then verse 10, he follows it up with, but if you are afraid to attack. And it's just like God knows Gideon, God knows us. He knows us enough to know what we need. Like he knows Gideon enough to know that he is still afraid. After all the signs that God has showed Gideon after all the things that he has done, um, he is still operating in a sense, like kind of out of this fear. He still has some fear inside of him with this battle. Um, and it's just that it's amazing to see that God still chooses to use him. God still chooses to work through him. Like his fear and him being afraid doesn't disqualify God from working with Gideon. And so it's just we see God, choosing to use him, like giving him like a way out in a sense.
Yeah.
Like by saying, but if you are afraid to attack, like I'm not gonna punish you for it, just take your servant with you. And that'll help, with the fear. So you're not by yourself. Although I'm with you, although I've always been with you this whole time, I understand you, Gideon. I understand what you need, and you need somebody physically with you. And it's just, interesting to see that. Like, but if you're afraid, go down to the camp. And then it says, so Gideon took the servant, right? It wasn't okay, I'm not going by myself. Where's my servant? And it is just it's interesting to see that. Like I said, I think a lot of times we think that we're disqualified or God doesn't or can't use us if we have fear or if he's done something before but we're still hesitant, or if he told us to do something and we're hesitant. Yes, sometimes that can be bad, sometimes that can be detrimental, right? But in this case, we're seeing, the other side of God. We're seeing where he's choosing to be patient. He's choosing to show grace, show mercy, and still work with Gideon as he is trying to operate and trying to grow his faith and his trust in God. And so that was the thing that stood out to me in these verses.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is interesting um, that it, I think I was telling you, so you compare Gideon to the situation with the children of Israel right before they go into the promised land. Where after Moses sent the 12 spies, they come back. Um, God tells them before they, I believe, even before the spies went, the
Before,
land
yeah,
is yours. The land's
yeah,
yours. Like, go get it. I brought you all this way. You went across the Red Sea. You saw Pharaoh's army, drown. I've kept you in every battle. Every people that have tried to attack you, you've been victorious. Go into the land and get it. And they were so afraid they wouldn't go.
mm,
And you just can see God know, like you said, God knows Gideon. God knows all of our hearts. He knows the
yeah,
difference between, you know, a fear that's like, no, I mean, you're not, you may be afraid, but you are still willing to go. You
hmm,
will still fight. And just an outright, like, no, like we are not going. We are not fighting.
yeah,
No. Nope. I don't care what you show us. I don't care how long we were in the land spying it out. We are not going.
yeah,
Um, and then, kind of also along with your point, while God is talking to Gideon, God is also in verse 13, God is giving one of the Midianites a dream. And he's giving him this dream for the specific purpose so that Gideon, when he comes, because God knows, okay, yeah, you're choosing option B. I already know. I know you, Gideon. So I'm already preparing the scene. When you get to the camp, you know, just by chance, just by chance,
yeah,
but by divine orchestration, I'm going to make sure you are able to hear that the enemy that you are so afraid of, they're more afraid of you. than you are of them.
Yeah.
And I was looking at it. If Gideon had 32,000 people show up for the original call, but what was it, a third or more than was more than a third, like they didn't want to be there. They didn't want to fight. They were afraid, and when given the opportunity, they were quick to go.
Hmm.
And Gideon would never have imagined that Midian was feeling exactly the same way as those men that left his camp. They
Yeah.
didn't want to be there. They knew, look, God's not with us. We thought he was with us because we were able to be to have some success early on, but this feels different. This feels like a setup for us to lose.
Yeah.
And lose bad, you know? So, um, this dream of bread rolling over their camp and, destroying their tents, like, it's all orchestrated, and like you said, to get Gideon to recognize the thing that you're scared of, I've already defeated it. It was defeated before I even called you.
Yeah.
Before the fleece was wet or dry, it was already defeated. Um, but sometimes it really takes work to get us to believe. And like you said, you really just see God is not looking for reasons to disqualify Gideon, because there are many. If he was looking for them, there's so many. He just, what, Gideon, you're come on. Like
Right.
if you don't want to go, just say you don't want to go. Like if you don't want to do it, just don't put me through all this extra work if you just don't want to go. But
Yeah.
it's not that Gideon doesn't want to go. He's, like Midian was the Midian that he in his imagination were a big problem. But
Yeah.
the real Midian, when he goes down to here, he's like, oh, I mean, these guys are more afraid of me, and I only have 300 men, and they're scared. They are
Yeah.
in their camp scared. That's nothing but God. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just interesting.
No, it definitely is, man. Just you know, it, just the dream and the servant's response to it. Like he says, your dream like can only mean one thing. Like, how do you take that and that has to mean this, and
Right.
you just see, like you say, like God just orchestrating like this whole situation, so that it works out in Gideon's favor, so that it works out, for Israel.
Right.
The thing that, like you said, the thing that he's afraid of, God has already worked it out, and he already has the victory over it. He just has to realize it.
He
Um,
needs to stop being scared of it,
yeah, yeah, and I
which I
think that's, you know, that applies to us. I think we can take that same principle. Like there are things that we are afraid to do, afraid to move and act. And God has it set up. God has already given other or God has already given the dream to the other side. It already says they're defeated.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but it's just waiting for us to go to just do what God has said.
Yeah, man. And I don't want to use so much time, but man, it's amazing. Like Midian doesn't leave. They know they're defeated. They feel like, oh man, we're
Yeah,
defeated, but they don't leave. They stay there. Like and they're gonna fight.
yeah,
They're actually gonna fight, knowing that yeah, I mean we feel it, but I mean we're not gonna run. We're gonna stay and just play it out.
yeah,
It reminds me so much of like the story going back like with Pharaoh. Pharaoh knows he's defeated,
Right.
Like you can't like the saying, your arms are too short to box with guy. Like you're not gonna win this. But
Yeah.
he just refuses to nah, okay. That plague went away. Okay, I'm back. I'm back in business. Like, he just but yeah. Anyway, let's hear from Darnell.
Good morning, everyone. Eric and Richard, thank you for allowing me to share. One thing that really stood out to me was the fact that verse 7, when they landed upon the 300, the last 300 that were willing to fight, God said, "Go, for I have given you victory over the Midianites." And later on, you come to find out that that night he told Gideon to go and go do what you have to do. But if you're too scared, you go to the camp and listen. And Eric and Richard have already explained like what happened at that point. But it wasn't until Gideon was listening in to the dream, to the interpretation, where they say that there's no other explanation but God has given the Israelites victory over us. It wasn't until Gideon heard that when he got excited, when he shouted. And I thought that was interesting. And a lot of times in our lives, we get happy when somebody else is telling us something when God has already given us what we needed to hear. God has already told us that we're victorious, that God has already told us that we win. No matter what we go through in life, no matter what struggle, no matter what obstacle that we face, God already told us that the Bible says that we are more than conquerors, right? The Bible also says that we can do all things through Christ that strengthens us. The Bible also says with God, there's nothing impossible. He's already told us that we have the victory. So why does it have to take us hearing from somebody else that we're going to be victorious and that we're going to win and that we're going to prosper and that financial blessings are coming and all these different things. And I'm not one to shame prosperity preaching and different things like that, but I will say that we sometimes act as Gideon did in the sense that God told Gideon directly, you have victory. I'm going to give you victory over the Midianites. You have won the victory. You were going to win even when there was 32,000 people. You were already going to win, but I wanted to cut it out. I wanted to make it shorter so that you don't boast and brag and say, because we had so many people, we did it on our own. I'm sending you with 300 men, and with those 300 people, you are going to win. You have victory. So it shouldn't have to take us hearing from somebody else's mouth confirmation that we're going to win when God already told us that we were going to win. I just thought that was interesting. So I thought that was something that I myself fall victim to, listening to other people, listening to other sources telling me that I have the victory when God already told me that I have the victory. So why shout when they say it when I could already shout when God has said it to me already? And that was pretty much the one thing that stood out to me.
Yeah. Great points. Was
So
there
you just switched us. That's why I was
we
confused.
run the other side? My bad.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's Rich, come on, man.
There we go.
I got to close my eyes. Okay. All right. You want to? I didn't have anything else. Yeah, Darnell's points, your points, all
Yeah.
just great points.
Yeah. Okay. So if nothing else, once again, we thank you for joining us. We thank you for listening. But more than listening, we hope that you read this for yourself. We hope that you are going to take a look at it if you haven't already. Like I said, we didn't touch on every single verse, so there's something in there for you to look at and to pick out for yourself. So we hope that you will do so, and then let us know in the comments. Write that in there so we can see it. It encourages us to see, what you see when you see things. Like, it just encourages us, and so we would appreciate that. And so, yeah, we thank you for joining us. And if the Lord says the same, then we will see you next Monday for another morning high five.